So welcome everyone and welcome Afsaneh to the Parenting the Intensity Retreat, Conflict Edition. So today we will be talking about the struggle that we can encounter when we homeschool kids who are emotionally intense. Often it's going to be conflict or resistance, mostly from those kids. But first, can you introduce yourself a little so that people know who you are and what you do?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you and get to speak with you today. My name is Afsaneh Moradian, and I'm the founder of MLC Homeschool Coaching. And I'm also a children's author, curriculum writer, and a longtime educator, teacher, trainer, turned homeschooling mom, which is totally not my plan. And it was really hard and it was kind of a disaster. And it was a major struggle for me, which is what, I had to figure that out. And then that experience is what turned me into a homeschooling coach to help other parents not have to go through what I went through, as miserable, as difficult, and for as long.
So. Yeah. I think I know it was my experience too. We homeschool now for similar reason because school was a catastrophe. And I think it's the case for many kids who are here that might be homeschooling or that might not be homeschooling yet, maybe. That school is like, it's not what we had planned. We haven't decided before our kids went to school that we would be homeschooling forever and ever. That was not in the cards. And that brings definitely some difficulties that are not necessarily the same as for people who decided homeschooling was their path or they were even homeschooled themselves.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of people who have homeschooled other kids, and then there's the one kid that it doesn't work for, and it throws everything completely out of whack. Because it's, homeschooling would go so smoothly, so well, right? If there wasn't any resistance.
Yes. Let's dive into that. And it's the underlying theme of so many things in this event is like these kids are resisting, but there's a reason behind. What is the reason or the reasons? I'm guessing why are and I'm asking for a friend. That never happens in my homeschooling.
Yeah. So resistance during learning, and you could apply this just as easily to homework wars. I know a lot of parents have to fight to get math homework done, get homework done every night. So it's a very similar thing, but you just don't have as much control if it's homework because someone else has decided what the assignments are. Yeah. But basically, when a child is resisting and it's a learning assignment or it's a learning experience, it's your child saying that they can't do what you're asking them to do in the moment that you're asking them to do it in the way that you're asking them to do it. So in most cases, it means that the assignment isn't developmentally appropriate, doesn't fit their learning needs, and it's something that they just are not able to actually do at that moment. And that is a hard thing for parents to wrap their heads around, because when we went to school, it just didn't matter if it met our needs, we had to do it anyway. Yes. And so I think a lot of parents have that gut, instinct and that reaction. You can do it, or just get it done. Just do it anyway, because that's what life is, and that's how life is. But that is very difficult for a unique child who's not able to process information in a way to be able to complete that assignment. And so maybe they'll do it anyway because they don't want to disappoint you. They don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to lose screen time or something important to them. But that's very different than meaningful learning in a calm, relaxed way where they're truly engaged with their learning and feeling confident and proud of what they're doing. So
yeah. And I think like sometimes some days it looks like it works. They look like they can do it. And then the next day they can't. Like, that's hard.
Yeah.
What do you say is the reason behind that?
Right. So it really is. Unique kids deal with a whole lot of anxiety, and we can't see it in them. Sometimes we see it expressed through like meltdowns and explosions, the big, I can't do this, when we push a little too much, and then they really have to, set that boundary, which is what they're doing through their resistance. They're actually establishing a boundary. It's kind of it's a difficult thing to deal with, but it's actually a really important, pretty cool thing that our kids do, because they know, even from the youngest of ages, what is okay for them and what isn't. And then they're telling us that in different ways. So it's kind of neat. But I know it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good in the moment. So one day they can do multiplication, and the next day they're looking at it like they've never seen it before. And that has everything to do with, was that learning the day before, was it meaningful? Did it connect with them in a way that it could stick longer than the time to do the assignment? The other piece of it is the following day, it's a different context. How are they feeling? Do they feel anxious about it? Are they underconfident about it? Is it raining outside? Is it snowing outside? Are they hungry? Are they tired? There's a whole lot of things that go on in order for kids to be focused and feel confident and be able to do it. But a lot of it really has to do with, if the immediate learning doesn't fit their needs, they're not going to retain it and be able to do it in the same way a few hours later, or the next day, or a few days later. They're going to relearn it probably in a different way that's going to click for them.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point of the difference. Like, we might be able to get something out of them, but if they don't retain the information, what's the point, basically? It won't really help on the long run, and they might encounter other problems later on. Yeah, and what can we do then? Like, if we have that, how do we deal with that? Like you said, saying just pushing through and might just create more conflict. And that's what we often see. So what's the alternative?
So if you can not get frustrated, because I know it can be very frustrating, especially if it's day after day after day after day. If you can stay calm and not get frustrated, if you can ask some questions to try to figure out, is it something that you can fix kind of easily, like having a snack, drinking some water, doing a movement break, to then be able to sit down and do it. That might work sometimes, depending on what's going on with your child. Maybe it is asking questions. If they say, this is too hard, I can't do it, and then they're done and they put their head down. So pushing them to do it probably is going to lead to a power struggle in that moment. But if you can say, can you show me? Or what feels too hard? Can I help you? Is there anything I can do? Should we look at how to do this again? So if you can validate them saying that they can't do it, and not push them to do it anyway, and instead take a different approach to see if there's anything that you can do to help them be able to do it in the moment, that might get to, some productivity, right? Your child doing some of the assignment.
Okay. And like you said, you build curriculum for a long time. And would you say if a child is always resisting changing the curriculum or changing the method of the approach or the philosophy or anything, because we know there's so many ways to homeschool, like, would that be another option? And if so, how do we know that's what's needed?
Yeah, so if your child is resisting pretty consistently, maybe it's one subject, maybe it surprises what they're resisting, but if they seem very unmotivated about learning and it's very begrudging, and you're doing more work than they're doing, and you're spending all this energy to try to get them to do write a couple sentences, do a couple math problems, it means that this approach to learning is not actually the approach that they need. And that's a very difficult thing, because usually curriculum, you choose a curriculum to homeschool, or like I said, the homework assignment is chosen by the teacher, but your child is saying, this is not the way that I'm going to learn best. And that requires figuring out a different approach to their learning that is going to meet their needs. So it's not really buying different curriculum necessarily, because a curriculum really is a guide. It's not meant to be 100% of the learning. And it's very difficult to find an open and go curriculum for a unique brain
Yeah.
To be honest. So it's really then you feeling empowered, you knowing what changes to make, how to shift things, what to do so that it does it does fit your child's needs. And that, of course, there's people like me who like specialize in that as homeschooling coaches. I work with parents to figure out, we use an approach to then figure out what the planning is. So the basic rule of thumb is, resistance during learning time is a planning issue. It's not really the child refusing to learn. It's the child saying, I can't do it in this way. I need you to give me something else that I can do. And that, I know that can feel very stressful and scary to parents. I do know, which is why, that's why I exist, to give that support, so that you're not on your own figuring it out.
So what you mean by planning is more like different kind of activities or different kind of the ways to bring information to the child from the parent part. Is that what you reference when?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it can even be a completely different approach, because I think what we do is we take our schooling experience and then bring that into homeschooling. So even though so many parents will say homeschooling is not school at home, there's still this idea that you have to teach all the different subjects, maybe separately, and you need curriculum to do that, you need guides to do that, you need set times to do that, or maybe it's a little bit more of a mush. We do whatever, whenever, but then it's hard to feel like how your child is advancing and developing those skills and the topics that they're learning and all of that. So it's really having an approach that includes communication, that includes planning, which just looks very differently from one family to the next, because it also matters who you are and what you're interested in and how much time you want to spend homeschooling and what else you want to do during your day, right? So streamlining the planning, creating activities and experiences that are engaging for your child. And that is what we figure out, but that is not the same from house to house. It just isn't. So what is going to work for your child and for you so that homeschooling is smoother, calmer, streamlined, one part of the day, not the whole day. And then you can begin to think about, what else would you like to do with your time? Lots of homeschooling parents start businesses or join clubs and, get to, or exercise, get to do things for themselves when it's not the endless resistance, power struggles, meltdowns, explosions. And then it's just the fear and the stress that we have to deal with. It just takes so much energy. So that's, removing all of that. And then you just have this like nice, calm homeschooling experience that you can then see yourself doing for years and years and years to come.
Yeah, because sometimes it's so confronting that we're like, there's no way we cannot continue to do that. We'll break. That's for sure. And I love that coming from someone who built curriculum, you're saying just taking one curriculum and trying to apply it as is for children that are different, or that have different needs, won't work. It needs to be more flexible than that, and so that it answers their needs better. And I think that's something we need to hear a lot. I think lots of parents, like, we feel it, but it needs validation that what we're feeling is true.
Right. So it's not true that the curriculum writers are the experts who know more than you as the parent. That's actually not true, because you know your child better than anyone else does. So when we say that, neurodivergent, unique kids need meaningful, purposeful, high-level learning that they can connect to, that does not mean indulging your child and only doing what they want to do. That's not the same thing, but it's about how you package the learning, how you present it so that it's presented in ways that actually feel really good for your child and don't feel like punishment or don't feel tedious or a burden. So it's really taking the concept of learning and bringing it to your child in a way where they then are running towards it because they want to do it. Where the skills and the topics, the learning is a means to an end. So, for neurodivergent kids, with a diagnosis or not, but if your kid is resisting, then they're not going to do a one size fits all sort of thing. So it means that it has to be presented to them in a way where their anxiety stays away and they're excited to do it. And they don't have to be aware that this is skill building. And a lot of curriculum is so focused on skill building that it kills math. It takes the joy, the creativity, the personal connection out of learning, unfortunately. And I think that there's amazing curriculum out there, but it's not meant for unique kids. So it doesn't allow for that. And then it's really up to the parents to figure out how to modify. And that's daunting. That's overwhelming. I know, which is why I'm not like, oh, just fix it. My action step isn't going to be fix your curriculum. It's actually, you can schedule a call with me. We can talk about it. There's ways to get support with it so that you're not on your own, but you can't expect a kid to just start learning if the strategies aren't there for, to support their unique learning. They're not just going to do it all of a sudden. You have to actually make those changes to make it work.
And so as a first step in action, where should they start if they have a lot of resistance? What would be the first thing you suggest they do?
I would say stop trying to get them to do it anyway. I would say at the first sign of resistance, acknowledge it, and then maybe ask some questions or set it aside and move on to something else. And then see if you can revisit it later or try a different way to revisit it later. And I think what that'll do is that will keep your child regulated because they won't have to get into, fight or flight or freeze mode. They'll say, oh, okay, my parent really does understand that I can't do this right now. So then you don't have to, you're still going to have to figure out about the learning and how to adjust the learning. But in that moment, you're not going to have the explosion, the meltdown, the power struggle at the very least.
So it's okay to just let it go for now and try later something else differently, but let that one slide and do something else.
let it go, and note to self, your child needs a different approach to the subject or to their learning in general. Okay. And then that's what you can then start to look for and figure out. But never take it personally. Your child isn't resisting you. They're not challenging your authority. They're not trying to upset you. They're not. I know it seems like it, but they're really not. Kids really do want to learn and want to make us happy. They're really setting a boundary and saying, this isn't right for me. And then if somebody tries to make us do something that we know isn't right for us, we fight back. I mean, we really do get upset. We as adults, that's how we are as humans. And that's where resistance is so important, because if someone was trying to get your child to do something that would hurt them, you would want your child to resist that adult or that child, right? Not as much as they could. So it's that same impulse that you're seeing, and it's your child saying, help me, I can't do this way. Help me, don't make me have to do it anyway. So that's really recognizing that, seeing that this is, a boundary being set / a call for help, and make a note. Okay, my kid needs a different approach to math, a different approach to reading, a different approach to writing. This is not fun. It should be fun, right? And, it should not be awful. Tears, right? We don't want tears as part of the learning experience. We don't want your tears, and we don't want your child's tears. And I say this, having cried so many tears, so scared, so worried that this isn't going well. I'm failing. I'm not the right person to teach my child. All of those thoughts. So it's really not. It's not that drastic. You are amazing. You are the right person to teach your child, to help them with their homework, all that stuff. You love them more than anyone else will. It really is, okay, time to take a step back and get them a different approach, a different way of learning these things.
And this is so important. Thank you for saying that. The fact that so many parents feel like they are failing when things are not working, but that's not the case. Thank you for that.
Not at all. Just as your child is learning, you're also learning what it means to homeschool this child, this unique child, right? And so you know them very, very well, but that doesn't mean you always know what to do about it, right? Like, I'm sure, when you say, put your shoes on, we're leaving, you wish your child put their shoes on to leave. And lots of families, I didn't know, lots of families have that experience. They just say, let's go, and the kids are ready and they go. So there's a whole lot that happens during the day that is so based on communication, executive functioning, and all the ways that you support your child's growth. So learning is no exception. It's just that you maybe aren't sure what to do and how to do it yet, but that's okay. Because just as you've learned how to parent this child, how to put this child to bed at night, you can also learn how to approach their learning. And like I said, there's support out there, for that. You're not on your own. This is not sink or swim. You're not on your own through the process, right?
Yeah, and that feels lonely sometimes for sure. So like there's the fact that knowing there's some resources available, that's very great. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you wanted to share before you share what resource you're offering to our participant?
I think this topic is enormous. We could talk about it for hours and hours and hours, but I think, my biggest recommendation always is going to be to schedule a free call with me. And that way we can talk about what you're experiencing, how you wish homeschooling was, and get an action plan. Even if it means that we're not going to work together, at least you'll get off the call with a plan in place and you'll know what to do. So that helps. And that, my website's mlccoaching.com.
Yes, all the links will be somewhere around the video based on where people are looking or listening to the presentations, but they'll find everything to connect with you and get a free resource also from you. So yeah.
And the free resource is a masterclass on homeschooling with triggers. So it's homeschooling with the triggers and how to keep going with homeschooling when triggers pop up that you weren't aware of, which is a part of homeschooling. Kids who have sensory, processing issues.
Yes,
that's part of parenting and a part of homeschooling.
Yeah, we uncover new triggers all the time. So again, links will be around the video somewhere or in the show notes for people that are on the podcast. So thank you so much for being with us today. And if people have questions, you'll be in the Facebook group. So people can go there to ask questions if they want. There will be a photo with Afsaneh's face on it and the title of the presentation. And if you have any question, you can go ask them there. So thank you so much for being there with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'll talk to you soon.